Alhamdulillah. Please have a seat. We're going to have conversation, and that means with the audience. So please think of some questions. You can ask Bryan. And I'll start, but please raise your hand. We have mics, they're sanitized, and please join the conversation with us.
I'm here till Friday, so I'm not trying to get anywhere fast. So please ask if you have a question.
Who would like to go first? Would anyone?
Can this be like school and we call on people?
Yeah, let's point people out. The lady at the front wearing the mask. Yes, please. There is a mic behind you. Hi. Oh, sorry. Would you like to ask a question? Okay. People are shy. I'll start. So when you went into the Secret Service and you had cleverly rerouted the phone number of the Secret Service to your own personal number and updated Google Maps, and what was your feeling when you went into the Secret Service to tell them about this issue? Like, how did you feel before going in there?
I think it was more like a sound, which was more like I just didn't. It was such a bad idea, but I called 4 friends. 2 were in the Marines with me and now worked for the FBI. And when I called them, it was like, "What? Wait, you did what? Why would you do that?" I'm like, "Well, it's because of this bigger thing," and trying to explain the reasons why didn't really seem to help. It was just, "Wow, you're an idiot. Like, why did you take that risk?" But luckily, there was no criminal intent. So going into the Secret Service was the right thing to do. And ultimately, looking back, it was the only reason I'm not in prison.
Yeah, that took some guts to walk in there with that information. That was awesome.
Do not recommend. Don't do
Just
that.
Bouncing back out to the audience, has anyone got any questions for us? Okay, so please, just raise your hands. I'll keep looking around, and don't feel shy, don't feel embarrassed. We really want to hear from everyone and join the conversation. So touching on social engineering, in your view and your experience, what are some of the most effective techniques used in social engineering?
It's usually the more simple, the better. Most of the attacks come via email in the form of phishing or spear phishing, trying to trick people. It's the ones who are phone calls that are particularly dangerous because they'll target older people. So I call, let's say, your grandmother or mother, whichever, and say, "Your son's been arrested. He's arrested in Mexico. We have him here. If you wait 2 more hours, he's going to go to a federal lockup and we can't do anything, but I can offer you a way to get him out. We'll drop him off across the border for $5,000. Tick-tock, tick-tock." She doesn't have time to call and verify, "I didn't even know you were in Mexico." You're not. You're at home. You're sleeping. But because of that urgency, because of that, we all are susceptible to it. There's a sale going on at the mall, and you're going to miss it if you don't go. It's that feeling of missing out and the psychology behind it that creates this false urgency, or the reduction in supply creates a bigger demand, when in reality, nothing actually changed. Someone convinced you of the truth, because ultimately as people, we want to trust other humans. We want to build a tribe. We don't want to think that someone's trying to take advantage of us.
Yeah, true, good point. So you're saying the key thing to exploit, or the thing that's being exploited, or the most effective technique, is to actually press upon urgency and leverage urgency and also trust, and the natural human nature.
The more successful phishing messages right now are, "Your iCloud account has been compromised. Someone tried to change your password. You need to fix this." That sounds really urgent. Or, "There's been a charge on your credit card. We approved it, but you might want to review this. Click the link." If the link, or if the picture doesn't show up, click this link instead, or go here, call this 1-800 number. The 1-800 number doesn't even work, but no one's going to call the number when the link is available because you don't want to wait. It's like your girlfriend or your wife saying, "We need to talk," click. that sends people into a panic. You don't want to hear, oh, this is, something bad happened, we'll talk about it when you get home. No, tell me now. Like, I want to know now. What's this bad information? So you click the link. So whenever you get a link or you get an email, if you happen to click it, the next screen, if it says type in your credentials, don't do it. If you do, good luck. It's always going to be phishing, and it will look good. There'll be a lock in the corner, it'll be HTTPS, it'll have a certificate, and they're targeting companies now with free certificates that look real, but they've been registered a week ago. And common people are all being told, if it has the lock, it's going to be fine. No, anybody can get it. You can be a really sophisticated criminal and have the little lock thing up in your browser. Be skeptical. If someone sends you something that's too convenient and too helpful, it's definitely too helpful. Don't do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is true. It's very hard to detect. Oh, thank you. Thanks. I knew the left were going to come in. I knew that. Okay, so we'll start with the gentleman in the checkered shirt. Please don't touch the mic if you can, and one of our team will help you adjust it to your requirements. Thank you very much. And the right side, come on, please. I know you have better question sets. Thank you. People are coming up now. Okay, please.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
My name is Saad and I'm from Pakistan. It's good that you pointed us as a leftist rather than rightist. Bryan, I think it was a really emotional story which you shared with us. Thank you for sharing that. In your slide, you mentioned that employee training is the first thing which we should do before you go on to the security and the endpoint security and everything. But then in the last point, you mentioned about mindset as well. Isn't that linked to the training part as well? I mean, the mindset is something you develop through the training, or is it something separate?
Yeah, you can definitely tie the two together, but if you have an organization that's more like the training for your organization, if you don't have that, always keep that as sort of like a general rule of be skeptical. It's a really good observation. I probably could reorganize the PowerPoint better, but I'm not a PowerPoint expert.
Thanks.
Thank you. No, it's exactly right.
Okay, we'll move over to the right side now. Yes, gentleman with the hand up. Again, please don't touch the mic, and just give us a second to enable the sound for you.
Hello?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you. Please come a little bit closer. Thank you.
Hello, hi. I'm just wondering, do you think it's ever possible to be 100% resistant to social engineering attacks?
Yeah, if you never talk to people.
But in a realistic world,
No.
do you think you can never create a perfect employee who will never get?
I click on links that I shouldn't every so often. So if I do it, no one in this room should feel bad for falling victim to it.
Right.
It's how you deal with it and create a culture in your organization that allows him to say, I made a mistake, and you don't get punished or fired. Because shame as a tool or a weapon, or like severe punishment, is no way to run a company.
Yeah, and the second question, do you ever get frustrated if you see companies investing huge amount of money in the technical security side, IDSs, IPSs, and whatnot, but then not concentrating much on policy making and creating, as you said, a security culture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was my chief problem with Google. I use their products. I value the way that they architect solutions. They're one of the best companies from a security standpoint in the world, but it was a business decision that was overriding a security problem, and ultimately they had to destroy a product called Google Map Maker because of it, because they architected something assuming everyone was good, but that wasn't the case, and so they couldn't easily remedy it. So that's the thing that frustrates me, is when someone's not considering the security implications from the get-go, and you can have all of the most amazing tech in the world, but if you're gullible, it's going to be my amazing tech.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Also, on your first question, if it's possible to make people impervious to such attacks, I've been fortunate enough to work with different governments around the world, and also my own. I was very, very lucky. And to be honest, there is processes and procedures and educational awareness campaigns you can do. There's many, many controls that can be implemented very, very effectively. So there is ways and means, but 100% is probably not possible. But actually, one who's managing such implementation of security should consider the assets that you're actually trying to protect. Because good enough is good enough for certain assets. However, if those assets are of a military nature, then your checks and balances need to be a lot tighter around that. So, good enough in certain environments is always possible, but you have to adjust it. The amount of information security awareness training you're doing. If you have a physical threat from some lunatic psychopath who's looking to, do nasty things to people, you'd have to be very intensive there to make sure that such controls are effective, really. So it's about adjusting, knowing the threats, and what you're protecting is the most important. And on the second point as well, actually when technology is deployed, there's a really hard balance between deploying something that people can really easily use and also making it secure against people that just want to steal things or just play with things, but it might break, so those sort of criminal groups who might be state-sponsored, or they could just be people who really want to get into technology and understand, okay, that thing makes that things happen. Oh, okay, actually, that's quite interesting. So it's a real challenge, and all businesses, we have that challenge. It's really hard.
With the training aspect, you can reduce the amount of attacks, but you can also it's two pieces. How many attacks and how successful they are, and then how much damage each one does. If you can limit the damage to just a very small area that doesn't have any sort of consequence, it gets one employee. Though having laptop encryption means every laptop that gets stolen is just a finite cost of how much the laptop costs. There's no data breach information, there's no security risk. It's $1,500, $2,000 for the laptop, and that's it. You've effectively put a ceiling on every single incident or event. So if you can do that with training and other things, you can't ever get to 100%, but that 100% isn't also 100% fatality, because if you get a ransomware attack and your whole company's taken down, Garmin, a United States company that makes watches and GPS, they had to pay $20 million to get all their stuff back because their backups were infected, the backups of their backups were infected, and how many people can tell me why that's wrong? Anybody? Because something should be offline. We all stopped backing things up properly. That's like forgetting how to dribble in basketball. So you have one hot, one cold, one off-site, unplugged tape drive, something. No offense, older people know this better. The younger generation just stopped doing it. I don't get it. So I still remember zip disks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, infinitely more qualified. Advisor to UK government. I'm just loud and stupid.
Don't underrate yourself, please. Yes, sir. Do you have a question for us?
I believe we had another question over here after.
Oh, fantastic. Sorry, I missed you.
Hi, Bryan. My name is Mohammed. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask you, when do you know this is morally enough, or when do you check yourself? And like you just mentioned, the Google story, maybe not the brightest idea, but you proved your point effectively.
Yes.
So for someone who's eager to learn and push the boundaries, when do you know that this is socially enough by exploiting people's emotions and situations?
I like to employ advisors and friends and being involved in a community. So whether it's a Reddit or another type of forum or IRC channel, and having friends who are of the same mindset that I'm learning from, so that when I come up with something, I can get some feedback and at least bounce the idea, and they're like, don't do that. Or if you do this, and do this. And there are procedures in place for responsible disclosure. And if a company decides we're not going to follow those rules, then you have another alternative of, I found a bug, I reported the bug, they did nothing to fix it. I have an obligation, a moral obligation, to go to the media and report it because they're not responding. Public shaming of a company is different than shaming of an individual employee, and it has its place in corrective action. When a company's, well, we're going to go and dump oil onto these baby seals, and we can just get away with it because we're Exxon or BP or whatever. Somebody notices it. If they don't fix it, they need to go tell the public, and that needs to be solved. So there are those types of avenues you can go, but always try to be responsible in terms of other people's data, not disclosing unless you have no other alternative, disclose to the minimum amount of people, and ask for advice so that you can avoid potential pitfalls. None of which I did properly when I was first doing this.
But
so,
that's the beauty of learning.
yes.
And by the way, I got my Garmin about 4 days after they got hacked, and I was like, why is this not working? Just paid a hefty amount of money, but it's totally worth it once it works.
Inshallah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting, please. Yeah, there's been a really interesting evolution over time. You know, in the beginning, before the word even, long before even the word cyber, came into existence. But the evolution is going on. But yeah, moral disclosure, actually disclosing vulnerabilities, is a tricky one for those who have that sensitive information at hand. It's a very difficult one. Yes, please, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for the very open discussion there. I had a question with regards to, I do my best helping small businesses with cybersecurity awareness back in the UK. And my question was, when you're a business owner being pulled in 1,000 different directions to keep your enterprise afloat, how do I best put across the importance of the potential impact of a cybersecurity incident to them without going to one extreme of just blatant scaremongering, which isn't my style. At the other end, I'd prefer to avoid any jail time and hacking and any espionage claims.
We're in an early adoption sort of mindset from this technology, so we all wear our seatbelts, but there was definitely people arguing against the necessity of seatbelts 50 or 100 years ago when you're infringing on my freedom. I should be free to do whatever I want. And it's less dangerous because even in the middle of a pandemic, not wearing a mask, it's not just selfish, you're actually negatively impacting other people. It's the same in cybersecurity. So if you don't change passwords on your webcam that you just bought or your router, it can be weaponized as part of a group to make a botnet and attack other people who didn't deserve it. And your negligence is contributing a small amount to global problems. That's the most direct way I could probably talk someone into it, but you wear your seatbelt, you have your homeowner's insurance, you have your car insurance. This is something you have to do now to play in this world, and if you don't, it will bite you.
Yeah, I think from my perspective on that, as you know, I've helped many clients over the years, and the social engineering has always been 100% hit rate. And when you're trying to actually convey the importance, to your question specifically, obviously, before you even go into that, you're going to have your NDA set up, formal agreements. But the most important thing, so once you've established that relationship, professional relationship, it's really important to understand the value of the asset of that organization. So if company X is making widgets A, B, and C, and the intellectual property value of that is worth billions, then that would be the message you'd want to convey to the CIO if he was not taking it seriously, the importance of your social awareness program in reducing a social engineering attack that was successful the week before. Because Nathan was at his desk, he got a call from Bryan, who he never knew, but Bryan said that he was Nathan's new boss, and Nathan gave him his password, and then the whole network was compromised. Then Bryan stole the widget IP, and then that's it. The company is now toast. And there are many examples of this happening. Like you mentioned espionage, and this is actually something, a real threat that companies do have to protect against, and they really do need to invest in such programs as your company is running. And I wish your company all the best, actually.
If you want to look at it in a different way, if you have a babysitter and you have an infant, and you're looking at it like, okay, this business owner is the babysitter, and this is their business, how are they treating the baby? Just doing whatever they want to do? You're like, would you treat somebody should tell someone, like, this guy's totally mishandling the baby. This is gonna kill the baby. But we almost act like we have no responsibility. If it's a small enough organization, it's one person running the show, they're gonna be not a company. If it's a big enough organization and someone's being actively negligent, it's not appropriate to just say nothing. But in a tactful way, you can approach the person directly, be like, I think this is a big mistake, this is negligent, this is gonna cause this, this, and this. And there's ample studies and data out there to prove that point, and there isn't any for the contrary, other than I don't want to, or I don't feel like it.
Yeah, I think the last point which I wanted to say was also, your communication style when you're explaining the impact of an issue to someone who's responsible, for an organization or a department or production line or an IT service provider or a data warehouse, responsible company. You have to adjust your communication style appropriately, and that's very, very important. So address it appropriately. Consider what the impact on them, the organization, and the company if the worst happens. This is an effective way to communicate. Do we have any more questions? Yes, sir, please. The microphone is behind you.
Thank you very much for this interesting session. Just one question about this era of social networks, using social websites or applications, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook. You have experience how this changed the game of social engineering, and what kind of stories you could tell us about this, because I give this make the life of hackers easy, as will you also, since it is your job for social engineering and social networks. So I want to know more.
Actually, there's a really good example of this. Kim Kardashian talked about it in an interview with David Letterman on Netflix, that her family was tracked and monitored using all their Instagram posts to determine location. So using someone's location. So if I'm posting stuff, like I am posting about GITEX and GISEC and all of my flights, because someone is at my house and it has cameras and it has alarms and there's physical security. So I'm not leaving anything unattended, like the baby. There's no baby just sitting there on the floor. Therefore, no one's gonna break into my house and just find no one there. I wouldn't be posting if my house was empty. So when I go on vacations, I wait until like a week later and I start posting photos and spend a week posting photos, but I'm really back at home at work, because it can be weaponized and used against you. Same with most social networks will remove GPS location data from photos, which can be weaponized against people as well. So that when you go on a safari in Africa and you're taking photos of rhinos, they ask you not to have GPS turned on, because that's how poachers will track where the rhinos are to kill them, and it worked, and they're all dead now. So it's a very sad result, but people will have people break into their homes when they know that they're gone because of everything on social media. So open source intelligence, which is OSINT, it's really, really powerful, and people would be shocked as to what's available on the internet.
Yeah, I think one relevant example, particularly within customs, Dubai customs, it could be container IDs. It could be. So one client I was working with in the Far East, someone was posting pictures of dogs, cute little dogs, and an attacker recognized from a social engineering attack just the browser she was using. So from there they could construct an attack vector. They could say, okay, that browser's that version, I can use this code, or if the code's not available, I can build a lab to try and find a hole through there. And then because that person is working in the customs environment and maybe a criminal organization is paying me to do this, once I get access to the shipment itinerary, maybe I can make some ghost containers. And then when it passes through those ports, maybe then it can be used for illegal activities. So these types of threats, for your industry are very real. And I've worked with clients to try and close those issues actually in Europe as well. This is off the back of successful attacks of similar nature.
It becomes a problem for companies and government, especially when you're having to be accountable for what you're doing and be proud and celebrate and promote. We implemented this amazing new security protocol and it's from Netgear. And everyone's like, okay, now you have Netgear. I know how to attack that. So you almost can't advertise some of the security measures, and you almost need to have someone like me on staff to be able to say, don't do that. Don't post a photo of this. You can't post a photo of that. That's going to get you in trouble. Someone's going to know how to. It's taking a picture of your bank vault, but you have a bank vault that's shaped like a boat. People are still going to try to break into it if there's something valuable enough.
Absolutely. And we always have, before we had a really interesting debate, because I remember challenging you. So your perspective was, and this is actually, we have a shared perspective, I just didn't want to tell you at the time. But so we believe that, you can actually get into anything you want if you invest enough time and enough money. End of story. But, so my point of contention before and challenge was that actually you can. So, for example, in your services, it's all about understanding your assets and where the crown jewels are, for example. So, you don't need to spend a huge budget and have everything locked down as long as you lock down the most important place. And I'll give you a real-life example from thousands of years ago that's still there today. So if you travel to Kyoto, you know what I'm talking about, growing in Japan. So in Kyoto, there's an ancient samurai castle. It's still there, you can visit it. And it's multi-layers, this castle. So you have an outer perimeter, then you have a courtyard, and normally that's where the guards would hide, the main guards. So if you're lucky enough to breach the first wall, then you have the guards who are going to give you a warm welcome, right? And then if you were then able to get through the next perimeter, then there was the same again, but it would be the next gen level of security. This is really the next gen. Then if you were able, so these are quite primitive controls, but when you got to where the shogun sat, the flooring inside had multiple rooms along the side of it, and it was made from ancient wood, polished perfect because it's for the shogun. But the engineers put something in very special. The pieces of iron that they used for the wood was crafted in such a way that when you walked upon it, it sounded like birds singing. So it wasn't offensive, it was sweet, but it made a noise. And this alerted the elite attack guards to take the shogun. And this is where he would receive visitors. So if at certain times of the day, visitors were expected, they expected noises, but still they were at the ready. So obviously the engineering to install that type of hardware on the floor, this beautiful wood and grinding the iron to make the correct sound, it took a lot of investment, but they didn't need to do that on the front door. The front door, you have the basics, then you're good. And then as a security professional with a responsibility to protect your shogun, this is how you need to think. You don't need to invest and sweat every single detail. But when it comes to where your critical assets are, your crown jewels, that's where you really need to protect. So this is one really
and the
classic
wooden
example.
floors still make the sounds today, some of which are hundreds of years old, 800, 900 years old. It's insane, and it's really kind of freaky because you can't not make the noise, no matter where you walk. Like if you're ever trying to sneak into your parents' house, you can step on the stairs on one end and it doesn't make a noise, and this side does. Every single part of the floor makes a noise. Every single part of it. But it could just be because I'm fat.
Yeah, I remember that. It definitely didn't sound like cute birds when I was trying to stand there. Do we have any more questions? Any from the right side? Yes, please, madam. There is, to your right, there is the mic. Thank you. Please don't touch the mic, and the gentleman will help you out. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is kind of the change in times. You just admitted some time ago that the generation that you and I belong to were explorative, and we knew the consequences of probably what we were doing. You stepped into secret services and told them what they did. But we've got to admit that the generation we are in now, they already have an established field of what hacking is and what spying is, but what they're not aware of is what this might deal with, and the lack of regulatory or any kind of consequential awareness of doing something or how it's damaging people. Don't you think it is the express responsibility of our generation to inject in a little bit of negativity into personalized hacking and snooping into people's lives, which can probably isolate the explorer of just social hacking and bring. And I'm not saying that hacking cannot be ethical. It is ethical in many ways. It is required in many ways. But just to isolate it to where and why it's required, don't you think it is the express responsibility of people who understand the consequences to promote it at that level and make people aware more of the consequences it might lead to in the generation now? Because the generation now is pretty fast forward. They just want to do things. And I'm not stealing the dynamics from the generation right now. They're far more dynamic than we are. But, and yeah, that's what my question is.
Well, I think this is this is a policy question, so you're British. You're better at policy than we are. You guys have been doing it longer.
Yeah, this is a very difficult one to solve, and I do understand the issue you're talking about. Really, I do. Particularly, there's some scary things that happen. You see them in your news. But stopping hacking or developing policies to demonize it will only increase the activity from those who are that way inclined. So sometimes it can be counterproductive when you put in very strict rules to do it. So some really successful campaigns I have seen is, particularly from the British government, actually, I've seen the most beautiful campaigns where they tried to take those inquisitive minds and apply it in a positive way. So in the UK, there's been some excellent examples of where key policy has actually helped the current generation, the forward-thinking generation, and nurture it. And then partnership and educate and training. This I could just go on all day. We could have a whole exhibition for this. Really, we could. So I think demonizing and bad Nathan. This is not the way forward. The way forward is working in partnerships and trying to recognize talent. I mean, that's what I've seen to be successful. Other ways, the positive reinforcement. Demonization, I don't think is a successful policy, unfortunately.
I tend to agree. Right now, hacking is very difficult to prosecute because it is very difficult to catch someone who's taken enough steps to avoid detection. That being said, there's a lot to be said for decriminalization of illegal substances in the states and countries that have done it and treat it as a mental health issue. They're not making it legal, they're just not putting people in prison for 100 years. So treating it as something different and maybe turning a negative into a positive. You have some kid who's no idea what he's doing, he wants to be accepted, he wants to accomplish something, feel some sort of sense of worth, give him a direction that goes in a positive way. I could have easily gone in different directions if I didn't have the right motivations, or if I didn't have my kids, or if one thing led to another. I could have been angry and gone a completely different direction out of retaliation. That happens with people, but their careers are very short. I don't think increasing the punishment as a deterrent is going to change anything, because the punishment's already really severe. Breaking the Computer Security Act of 1984 is like, it's felony 5, 10, 15 years. You're never allowed to use a computer again. You're going to prison for a long time. Kevin Mitnick went to jail for 4 years, but he was actively doing something wrong. But they put him in solitary confinement because they said he could whistle nuclear launch codes into a telephone, which is it's insane. So it didn't deter anyone. We've seen all these people go to prison. We've seen all these bad things happen, and people still go and risk it because we're bored. And teenagers are going to be teenagers. The average age of a hacker is like a 17-year-old white kid. Just the demographics. Not saying that they're better or worse, or it's going to be an amalgamation of every country at some point as people kind of collectively catch up. But law enforcement's not trained for any of this. It's going to take a generation or two to get caught up, and we keep changing the way the rules are. So I think the policy of channeling that into something positive is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any more questions? Any others? If you've asked one and there's still one you want to ask, please ask.
And if you're shy, you can ask at book signing, or if you see me walking around.
Yeah, so Bryan's available for book signing, selfies, everything after. He's going to be here for a while. He's come all the way from the States. And I must reiterate how special this event is in Dubai here today and this week, GITEX and also GISEC here. It's a very special opportunity, and so many different countries are here collaborating, as well as everyone who's in region also. So this is a very, very special event, and yeah, it's a great pleasure you're all here today. So we'll conclude the event there, unless there's any last questions. Okay, it was a great session. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. Thank you, Bryan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That was my pleasure.
Okay, we're going to stop for a coffee break now, and hopefully see you back in 10 or 20 minutes time. We've got some absolutely amazing presentations. Please review your agendas online and you can see it. And tomorrow we've got some great AI, and after that we've got so many amazing speakers and so many thought leaders from all around the world. Thank you for coming.